How to handle the fear of the unknown this week on The Thinking Effect. In 5 minutes or less, I'm your host, Tommy Danger. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share. I was having a conversation with my grandmother this morning. It's pretty cold here in New York, and we have an oil burner. Oil is very expensive. But I was asking her about when I was a kid. We used to have coal, right? We had a coal furnace. So imagine almost like the briquettes that you put on the barbecue grill, but not like that, but just for illustration purposes. Like we had coal, like we had a coal furnace. And I remember it was like this gray metal, like monstrosity, and it had like a gate to the front of it. And it was just this, now that I think back about it, it was this beautiful yellow and orange glow that came out of that furnace from burning coal in the wintertime. And I was asking her, like, when because she's 90 years old, my grandmother. So to ask her things is pretty awesome. But the furnace was in the basement. And as a kid, my responsibility was I'm about, I want to say 8 or 9 years old. I had to put coal into that furnace. And I was asking, I was like, Grandma, how much did it cost to uh, order coal? I think she said we would order 2 or 3 tons, and she was like, it was like $20. Now imagine, I can't even imagine like what year it is. So we're going back to like early 80s, maybe 82, 83, something like that. So, and that would last about 2 weeks. So my granddad would, you know, put, I guess, 4 or 5 shovels of coal on at night, and then he would do what he called like bank it off. So banking it off would be like you put the coal in, but then you don't set it so where the coals would burn really quickly. So you like leave the door cracked a little bit so it could like have a little air and somehow would like burn slowly, wouldn't burn as quickly. So when I would come home from school, I would have to put 2 or 3 shovels on the into the furnace. And I remember going into the basement, just flicking on the light at the top of the stairs. It would scare the crap out of me. Just this, first it was dark before you turn on the light. And going down the stairs and opening the door, and, it's just junk everywhere, antiques. And now you have this big monstrosity that was like a dragon, right? And it was hot, and you had to open the door with like this metal hook so you wouldn't burn yourself. And now the distance to shovel the coal was almost like, man, I would say the length of like 2 houses. Like it was a nice distance from the front of the house to the back of the house to shovel the coal. So I would get the smallest shovel and I would scoop a shovel of the coal and I would be struggling to bring it to the furnace and I throw it in there, but half the coal would fall off the shovel before I would even reach it. So I have to go back again and scoop it. And that was a time in my life when I was really scared of going in the basement because I just thought like, what if the lights went out? What if the boogeyman got me? What if, just, I don't know, what if I saw a mouse or something? Just kid thoughts, you know? Um, what if I can't get the burner, the furnace open? Like all these things would go through my mind. Because mind you, when I came home, everyone was still at work and I had a responsibility as a kid. That was my job to make sure that for us to stay warm, I put the coal into the furnace. And as I reflect back on it as an adult, I had to ask myself, like, what was I really afraid of? Was it just the fact that it was dark? Was it the fact that, it was like visually it didn't look the way that I expected for it to look? Was it that I was actually going to get burned if I didn't pay attention? And I say these things to ask you because someone asked me recently when I talked about being an entrepreneur that you have to embrace the fear of the unknown. Like, question yourself, what are you really afraid of? And the first thing, or one of the things that most of us come to our mind is like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to provide for myself. Now, being totally transparent, there was a time when I had to eat out of um, food pantry. In between jobs, took the leap, didn't have money, family still got to eat. Swallow my pride. Rest my cousin's soul. She ran a food pantry. Would allow my wife and I to come there and pick up food on a weekly basis, right? But beyond that fear, you really have to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? And if you are afraid of it, what is the worst thing that could happen? Excuse me. Alexa, stop. What is the worst thing that could happen? And what can you do to change it? And when you really start to think about it that way, the look of the fear changes. I know, sometimes you may be afraid to even think about change or the fear, right? We would just stick to the word fear, fear of the unknown. But when you really start to unpack it, and you have to find your way of unpacking it, right? Sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's talking to a therapist, sometimes it's talking to yourself, sometimes it's speaking to other mentors who've been through the thing that you're trying to experience. But really unpack it and ask yourself, what about the unknown am I afraid of? This is the Thinking Effect, where we help you do your daily best. If you have any comments or if you'd like a guest to appear on the show, please hit me up via email, tommydanger@gmail.com, or hit us up at thethinkingeffect.net. Thank you.